So thanks to everyone for coming for tonight. I will take 5 minutes to put the I Ching within the context of the Chinese classical education, right? So please imagine the structure of the Chinese classical education as a house. First, imagine a platform, and that platform is the Chinese writing system. And upon that platform, you have the main structure of the house. Imagine it as a square. At the center of the square, you have the hexagram, meaning a figure, a graph, having 6 lines and symbolizing the epistemological development or the 6 layers of the mind. At the four corner of the square, you have the four essential books for epistemological growth from the Chinese tradition. So you have the Analect by Confucius. The Analect is an English word coming from a Greek word, analekton, meaning selected sayings. So the Analects are the selected sayings from Confucius. On the other corner is the Ta Shui, meaning the great learning. I will not go too much into the detail. I will come back to that later if you wish during the Q&A session. The third corner is the Mencius, the other major philosopher. And the fourth corner is made by the Zhongyong, usually translated as the doctrine of the mean, but I prefer to translate it as Santa living. Okay, center on what? Center on infinite awareness. So just to give an idea, Confucius was born in 551 BCE and he died in 479 BCE. Mencius was born in 372 BCE and he died in 289 BCE. I think that everyone here know that Plato was born in 427 BCE and he died in 346 BCE. So just to have a general chronological ideas. So, and the third part of the structure of the Chinese philosophy would be the roof. And at the center of that roof, having the form of a triangle, is the I Ching precisely. And on the left side, you have the Shu Jing, meaning the book of documents. On the right side, you have the Shu Jing, the book of poetry or the book of songs. And at the top of the triangle, you have the three books on rituals, but in the classical tradition, those three books are counted as one, right? And above it, you have the Chunchu. Chunchus means spring and autumn. At the base is simply the chronicle of the Lu Principality between year 722 and year 481. Why 481? Because according to the Chinese classical tradition, what was important or what is important is not the boring chronicle, but rather the philosophical elaboration made by Confucius. And why that elaboration stopped in 481? For a very simple reason. If you have a good memory, Confucius died in 479 BCE, so he could not have gone further. And what is important is that there are three epistemological traditions related to the interpretation of that spring and autumn. The first tradition is called Zuo Quan, meaning the tradition by Mr. Zuo, Z-U-O. And please forgive me, I will take some liberty in explaining by using modern concept. But the Chuan is essentially what I would call a geopolitical tradition. Okay, so the Chuan, you would have a consideration on realpolitik, on alliance between noble houses, that on military battles, that kind of thing. The second tradition of interpretation is the Guliang Zhuang, the tradition from Mr. Guliang, Guliang, and that tradition is more based on rituals. And here you have to understand that rituals is not understood at most of the time. We have the weakness to understand rituals as the robotic behavior or the mindless behavior. Okay, rituals within the Chinese traditions mean the right behavior that you have when you have the wisdom and the valor to embody the needed behavior in a specific situation. Okay, such a behavior within Chinese tradition is qualified as ritualistic or ritual behavior. And the last but not least is the interpretation of Gongyang, Gongyang, and that interpretation from Mr. Gongyang is about universal history. And in that interpretation, Confucius is not considered as an aristocrat having political goals and being a teacher, but simply the philosopher king. Okay, uh, like the role or the rank that Plato was granted by the Western tradition, meaning that within that perspective of universal history, there is the epistemological development to create Junzi, which is the exact equivalent to the aristocratic man of the Platonic tradition. And the creation of those aristocratic men are absolutely vital for civilization because those aristocratic men or Junzi are the essential ingredient for the creation of the everlasting civilization, meaning a civilization within which might is serving justice and not might is right. Okay, most of the time since the last 5,000 years of recorded history, sadly, we can see that we can acknowledge or we can sadly see that most of the time it is more my makes right and not my serving right, as is the what is wished within the Gongyang tradition. And here I would like to make a historical parenthesis. Most of the time, even in the West, I saw that most people would think that Plato wrote his 40 dialogues or so just for fun, okay, just for having interesting conversation with his aristocratic friends. That is not true, okay, because let's not forget that when Plato was born in 427 BCE, the the war that is known to us as the Peloponnesian War between Sparta and Athens was 4 years old because that war started in 431 BCE and will end in 404 BCE. So most of the young age of Plato was plagued by that war. And Plato noticed that his fellow aristocrats were absolutely incapable to deal with that war in a fair and wise manner. So let's not forget that Plato was from a very high aristocracy. His mother was a scion of the family, having Solon the legislator as one of his ancestors, and his father was from a family from the one of the first king of Athens, King Codros. So it is absolutely normal for Plato to see the governance of the state as part of his natural endeavor, if I may say so, since he was from the highest aristocratic roots. And he was absolutely disappointed by the behavior and by the factlessness of his cousins, of his brothers, and of his uncles. And he began the endeavor to write the 40 and so dialogues because it was his ambition to create a better aristocratic education in order to rejuvenate the state, and a little bit like the three epistemological interpretation of the Chunchu from the Chinese, meaning that trying to create a world where might would serve right and not might is right. If you remember in the Republic, I think chapter 2, you have a character called Thrasymachus, who gave a quite brutal definition of justice. Okay, Thrasymachus said that justice is the advantage of the powerful. Okay, that is the perfect definition, that might is right. So Plato was not at all in favor of that brutal definition, and all his life was to create a theoretical basis, but not only a theoretical basis, but also creating aristocratic man to be the essential ingredient to go to that ideal state precisely. I would like to remind everyone that Plato at 40 years old, meaning at in 467 87 BCE. He went to Syracuse because at the time there was a guy called Dionysius the First, who was the tyrant of Syracuse. And let's say here that tyrant, we have to be very careful with that word, because tyrant in our modern ears has a very negative connotation. For the Greek of the ancient time, it was not a perfect word either, but it was not so bad. Tyrant comes from Greek tyrannos, and tyrannos simply means sovereign. Okay, so a sovereign who uh, get the throne by military power, and that Dionysius the First was an absolutely brilliant general who managed to get the throne of Syracuse when he was 24 or 25. And when Plato met him in 387 BCE, he was older, of course. Plato was 40 years old. And Plato tried to convince him to be that philosopher king, precisely. Sadly, the interview did not end well. And maybe you know that he was so angry that he sold Plato as a slave. And thanks God, Plato's friend bought him back and brought him back to Athens. And some years later, 20 years later, Plato came back to Syracuse and tried a second time with the son of that Dionysius the First, who was Dionysius the Second. And sadly, it didn't work either. I did not tell those that anecdote just for fun. I just want to tell you that Plato at 40, at 60, and even a third time at 67 years old make the very long travel trip from Athens to Syracuse, and let's not forget that 24 centuries ago, it was not so comfortable that even if he was rich, to go from Athens to Syracuse by boat. So even his last trip, he was 67 years old, just to show you that his endeavor was truly practical. And one of the tragedy in the misunderstanding of Plato nowadays is that most people think that he was an ivory tower philosopher discussing theoretical and abstract stuff with his aristocratic friends. On the contrary, he was a very practical man, having in mind the creation of the perfect state or the almost perfect state. And it was also the endeavor of Confucius. Confucius trying to rejuvenate his own Lu principality. He succeeded a little bit, but ultimately fell because of, let's say, small man having got rid of him. He went into exile for 14 years between 497 BCE and 484 BCE. And, and he tried to convince the various princes of the Chinese world at the time to use his political ideas, but to no avail. So both men share the fact that they wanted to rejuvenate the state. Both men share the fact that they believe very much in what the Chinese call Junzi and in what the Westerner call the aristocratic man. And both men failed politically, and both men created a philosophical tradition which are still alive today, 24th century later. And most importantly, both men created a corpus of understanding which have 6 layers of the mind. Because if you read the Phaedrus or the chapter 7 of the Republic, the chapter 7 is better known as the allegory of the cave. Or if you read the what I explain as the house with a platform, meaning the classical Chinese corpus, you will see that in both traditions, the development of the mind is explained on 6 layers. And here I would like to explain those 6 layers, right? So I will use the Chinese tradition first. Okay, so in the Chinese tradition, they would distinguish between what is called the lower trigram. Okay, trigram, Trigram, meaning 3 lines. And for Plato, that lower trigram is called doxa. Okay, doxa meaning opinion, or if you prefer, the animal kingdom. And you have a space between the lower trigram or the animal kingdom and the upper trigram or episteme. Okay. Episteme most of the time is translated as knowledge, but I think that knowledge is a very lame translation for episteme. I suggest that episteme is infinite awareness or awareness. So now I would like to go back to the lower trigram or doxa or the animal kingdom. For Plato, the first line is called Acacia 1. Acacia, Eikasa, and it's a Greek word meaning the shadows. Okay, the shadows 1. And the shadows 1 are the senses perception. For Confucius, it's the same. The second line is called Acacia 2, and Acacia 2 is the intellect, okay? The concept, the words, the images. And for Confucius, it's the same. The third line is pistis, okay? Pistis can be translated as belief or convention, okay? If you read a English translation of the allegory of the cave of the republic, most of the time it's translated as a conventional truth, okay, meaning a truth that is the result of the convention of the powerful people within a society. So that is the animal kingdom or the lower trigram or doxa. And between the lower trigram and the upper trigram, we have a journey that is called the epistemological journey. And that journey is defined by the classical education. In the Greek tradition, it is the gardens of the 9 muses. In the Chinese tradition, it is the education of the 6 liberal arts. So we have a perfect parallel here. And that education is precisely to bring you to the upper trigram or to the divine reality or to episteme, to true knowledge or to infinite awareness, as I prefer to translate episteme. And so we have line 1, 2, 3 corresponding to the animal kingdom. You have the space of the epistemological journey, and you have line 4, 5, 6 corresponding to the 3 layers of the upper trigram of episteme. For those who know Greek philosophy, line 4 corresponds to the timeless form of beauty, kalos, and kalos is a timeless form. In time, it corresponds to the mind powers that would make you capable to uphold justice. After that, you have at the 5th line, kagatos. Kagatos is goodness. That's the timeless form. But in time, it corresponds to the 2 cardinal virtues of valor and moderation. And that those 2 cardinal virtues of valor and moderation have to be understood not only as a physical valor, physical prowess, but the courage to go into the inner exploration and the outer exploration, okay? The inner cosmos and the outer cosmos, okay? And that valor is much more important than physical prowess. And finally, the last line, the 6th line, correspond to timeless form of truth, corresponding in time to the cardinal virtue of wisdom, meaning that it's the mind powers of wisdom making you capable to solve a practical situation with wisdom precisely. Okay, and it is obvious that when you are at line 6, you also have valor and you also have justice, obviously. Why it is so important? Because that is the difference between the intellect and true being. Okay, because the animal kingdom can also be called becoming, and the divine kingdom can also call being, right? And let's not forget that the first three lines of the animal kingdoms are sense perception, intellect, and social sophistication. We can all learn stuff that we can put in our mind, but that is not enough if we don't have the infinite awareness that will make us capable to be unwavering in true situation in life where you will have to show valor, humanity, wisdom, and justice precisely. Okay, because we can learn stuff intellectually, but if we don't have that unwavering awareness, we will not be capable to translate it in reality in true life situations. And that is why the classical education will make the difference between the hypocrite and the true gentleman. Okay, because let's not forget that that epistemological journey correspond to different kind of political men. Okay, I will use the Platonic words and the Confucian word. At line 1, Plato would call the people obsessed with sense perception, obsessed with hedonism, with lex talionis, meaning with revenge and with tribal affinity. Plato would call them the democratic man. And the Confucian tradition called them the commoner. At the second line, at the intellect, Plato, politically, Plato called them the plutocratic man, and the Confucianist tradition called them the petty officer. And when I mentioned the character Thrasymachus having defined justice as the advantage of the powerful, that is precisely the understanding of justice of a plutocratic man. Okay. And finally, the third line, the highest of the animal kingdom, correspond to what Plato called the fake democratic man, Timocratic, and the Confucianist tradition would call them the officer. A good example of a fake democratic man, meaning a man saying that justice, for the plutocratic man, justice is defined as the advantage of the powerful. For the fake democratic man, justice is defined as the convention of between the powerful man. Okay, so it is a little bit better. It opens a little bit of discussion. And a perfect democratic man is Thomas Hobbes, the English philosopher born in 1588 and he died in 1679. Okay, he wrote a Leviathan-esque book called precisely the Leviathan, in which he explained that we have to relinquish our freedom to the state so that the state can protect us. Okay, that is the solution of the fake democratic man, of the officer, which is the highest level of the animal kingdom. For those who truly embody a classical education, they would like people to have more awareness and to truly embody uh, beauty. Okay, kalos, once again corresponding to in time to the mind powers serving justice, meaning that it is not only the convention between powerful man, but it is also a true awareness allowing people to take into account the needs of everyone and of having a kind society as much as possible. And after that, we have the aristocratic man at line 5 for Plato. For the Confucian tradition, the line 4, the true democratic man, is called the lord or the minister. The line 5, the aristocratic man for Plato, is called the sovereign for the Confucianist tradition. And The line 6, the philosopher king, is called the sage for the Confucianist tradition. Okay, so I want to show you the following things. You see a Chinese, okay, first on the, you see an hexagram, okay? You have an hexagram made by three lines, which is the lower trigram, and three lines made of the upper trigram with a small space between them. And you at besides, you have a character that is pronounced Wang in Chinese, and its meaning is king in Chinese or sovereign. So you notice that you have three horizontal lines connected by one vertical line. So those three horizontal lines correspond to the first bottom horizontal line correspond to the first and second mind layers. The middle horizontal line corresponds to the third and the fourth mind layers. And the top horizontal line corresponds to the fifth and sixth mind layers. And the vertical line is precisely episteme or infinite awareness. Okay, if you think to the Indian traditions, that vertical line is the progression of the seven chakras. Okay, if you make a rapprochement with the Indian tradition, meaning the expansion of awareness. And for the Chinese tradition, the first bottom horizontal line is also called earth. The second middle horizontal line is also called man. And the top horizontal line is also called heaven. So uh, Confucius, there is a paragraph in the Analects of Confucius, which is paragraph 2.4. And Confucius would use symbolic ages. Okay, he would say that at 15 years old, I devote myself to study. That is line 1 of the mind layers. At 30 years old, I I take my stand in society. That is line 2, the intellect. At 40 years old, I'm no more confused. That is line 3, social sophistication. So the three lines of the animal kingdom. Why I'm no more confused? Because I'm socially sophisticated, of course, but also I'm no more confused because I know now that there's something which is the animal kingdom, and there's something which is the divine kingdom or the infinite awareness. And that is something that is called the epistemological development of the classical education to go to the divine kingdom. And at 50 years old, line 4, or the fourth layers of the mind development, and capable to hear the will of heaven. Line 5, at 60 years old, I'm capable to hear the will of heaven without complaining. And at line 6, I'm capable to do what I want without infringing the universal laws. So I did not forget the I Ching, okay, because the I Ching is at the center, if you remember, the platform, the square of the epistemological books, and the triangle of the control books of the Zhou dynasty at the center, the I Ching. The I Ching, first I means changes, but also mean unchanged, okay? And Ching means the classic. So the I Ching is most of the time translated as the book of changes, and it's not wrong. But I think that it is much more beautiful and much more meaningful if the I Ching is translated as being and becoming. Okay, because at the core of the I Ching is the hexagram. And let's not forget that that hexagram is not only about the development of the mind, because you have to see it as 5 layers, not of the mind, but of reality. First, you have nature and life. After that, you have man and his seasons. After that, you have the mind of man and his seasons. After that, you have the cosmic mind. And after that, you have Tai Yi Tong, meaning how there is a great harmony between all those things that would be the path to the perfect society where my is serving right and not my is right. And here I would like to read something from Chinese history. There's a Chinese philosopher called Dong Zhongshu. okay? D-O-N-G, Dong. D is pronounced like a T, okay? And Zhongshu is his given name, Zhongshsu. So I spell the name for those who want to check it in on the internet after. He was born in 179 BCE and he died in 104 BCE. And I want to read the first few lines of his inaugural speech when the Imperial Academy has been created in 124 BCE. So I begin the quote. Man receives his mandate from heaven and is therefore superior to all creatures. Other creatures suffer troubles and defects and cannot practice humanity and righteousness. Man alone can practice humanity and righteousness. All the creatures suffer troubles and defects and cannot match heaven and earth. Man alone can match heaven and earth. Man is distinct from all the creatures and form a triadic relationship with heaven and earth. So I would like to make a small synthesis, maybe in 2-3 minutes, and I will go to the Q&A session because I favor more interaction rather than to give you a long speech. So in a nutshell, I say that there is a epistemological development, meaning an expansion of infinite awareness in the development of the human mind. That's one. Two, there is an absolute rapprochement between the Platonic lexicon and the Confucianist vocabulary. Three, both Plato and Confucius were not the ivory powers philosopher just talking, but they were absolutely committed and involved in practical political lives. And both of them fell during that time, but created a tradition that are both traditions and both insist on the reality of an upper trigram of episteme, meaning that what is learned in the animal kingdom is not enough because it is only a recording machine. And if you don't have your substance, meaning your being, okay, like Dong Zhongshu said in his way, man receives his mandate from heaven, meaning that his fundamental reality has been granted by heaven, that is being, okay? And if he doesn't have his being, he would not be unwavering and he would not be capable to embody justice, valor, moderation, and wisdom in real life situation, and he would only be a parrot. I stop here for now, and I would like interactions.
Wonderful. So I have many, many, many things to say, but what I want to do is I want to have first encourage people to ask questions. We can start with questions, and then we can go ahead and go further. This is really, really fascinating topic. So if somebody would like to raise any questions, go ahead and type an exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom. Because what I want to do is I want to explore this, this relationship between the upper trigram and the lower trigram. I want to look at, heaven, man, and earth. Just that, and kind of look at it both from the Platonic vocabulary and the I Ching vocabulary. So if anybody wants to go, I'll give about 10 seconds. Otherwise, I will start. All right, so I'm going to start. All right, so Quan, this is just wonderful. So firstly, I think it's easiest to think of it visually. I think the hexagram is really, really powerful. So first observation is there is the hexagram, which is upper trigram and lower trigram. So this is 2. And then you have the conception of heaven and earth and man being in the middle. So can you talk about what is the perspective when you look at it as upper and lower trigram, and comparative perspective when you say heaven, man, and earth?
Okay. So if you see man at the middle, corresponding to the third line of the lower trigram and the first line of the upper, meaning the lowest line of the upper trigram, the fourth line, that is very interesting. Okay, that is the absolute definition of man for me. Okay, man is the being torn between earth and heaven. Okay, because he has one foot on earth and one foot in heaven. And it is his tragedy, but at the same time, his greatness. Okay, because he's too aware to be an animal, because you know perfectly, for example, that the man who would choose drugs and alcohol just to forget, they cannot really forget, okay, because they reach to a state of awareness that is too high for him to forget with drugs and alcohol. So I would say that man is the being that has been put by nature, that he would be forced to advance to the heavenly dimension, to the episteme, to the infinite awareness. There are many words. And that is precisely the beauty of the character Wang, okay, because it shows perfectly when you make the rapprochement with the hexagram that you have one element, one line in the animal kingdom and one line in the divine kingdom. And he would have to be forced, well, let's say it in a nicer way. Nature is inviting him to make the vertical journey and to reconcile heaven and earth.
Wow, excellent. Talk a little bit. Let's just focus on man here. So describe the third line and the fourth line, the meaning of each of them, and talk about how man is that, as you know, the play between that. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, what is between the third line and the fourth line is the space, right? And the space can be interpreted as the space of pure awareness, of infinite awareness, and the tool to truly enter into that adventure of episteme or of pure awareness is the classical education. Okay, because as you know, Shrikant, the classical education is also called the timeless education, okay, entering into being precisely, or the aristocratic education. And here, when I say aristocratic, I never mean hereditary nobility. Okay, I always means in the etymological meaning of aristocratic. Aristos, the best. Okay, meaning that nature offer to us all in an equal manner that we can be the best if we make the effort to go into the epistemological journey. Hereditary nobility is simply how can I say it? Uh, a deformation, a tragedy, a stupid accident of history. That's all. Okay, and that is precisely the true rejuvenation of true history than to have true aristocrat and not hereditary nobility. So 3 and 4, the obvious stuff that is a blinding to everyone is the space. And the space is the invitation to go into that epistemological journey. Okay, well, I can. The other thing I want to say too is that politically, the line 3 correspond to pistis. Okay, pistis once again is a Greek word meaning belief or conventional truth. Either we choose to stay in mediocrity, okay, meaning the most powerful of us when have a meeting and we will decide what is justice, and because we have the weapons and because we have the money, we will just impose by force what we think is justice on the rest of humanity. Or we don't accept mediocrity and we will go into a true classical education or and we would offer that classical education to everyone or as many people as possible, taking into account the reality of the moment, and to create something truly original and truly fair, and always having an opening to more improvement. That is precisely the jump from 3 to 4. Okay, from the fake democratic man to the real one, 3 to 4. And maybe it's a good thing to say that democratic is coming from timos, and timos is a Greek word meaning rewards or honor. Okay, meaning that are you truly honorable or you're just a fake? And let's not forget that honor is the aristocratic word for justice. Okay, when you have a true nobleman talking about honor, what he truly means is justice, having a fair behavior.
Wonderful. I want to make just one more point, and then folks, I'll open it up for questions or comments. I think one of the most profound things that you brought up is the concept of infinite awareness. So I want to look at infinite awareness on one hand, the second, that vertical line in the character of the king that is connecting up all three, and the gap in case of man, because all three are basically the same kind of things. They are saying that you have to go vertical in the sense that you have to connect up all that there is. You have to connect up sense perception, the intellect, the social sophistication, the beauty, the goodness, and truth. And you have to keep going up and down and keep it connected. So it's that, and it's something, it's very easy to go flat in the sense that if you can just engage in sense perception or passions. You can just go flat intellectually, where you're just going round and round with the ideas that you have. You can just focus on, but if you just go just horizontal, then you're missing something. So the humanness and the ideal of infinite awareness, the ideal of the vertical line, is to keep integrating the levels of being, the levels of our faculties, the levels. So it's that verticality seems to be, and showing that man is in the middle. He's between heaven and earth. He's supposed to have, he's supposed to be the son of heaven and the son of earth. So he has to be in the middle. He has to have both the properties in him. He has to regard both of them as his. Only then he is in the middle. So is what I'm saying making sense to you? Is it what do you think?
Well, I think that is the absolute human adventure. Okay, when I say that for example, that some men would try alcohol and drugs to forget, well, it's a very lame method because it never works. Okay, we are too aware. Even the dumbest of man is too aware. So the only way to move forward is to precisely keep on that vertical journey, and that is precisely what characterized us. Okay, when Dong Zhongshu, 22 centuries ago, at the inauguration of the Imperial Academy, said that man receives his mandate from heaven and is therefore superior to all creatures, and only man can match heaven and earth. That is precisely what you said 2 minutes ago.
Excellent, thank you. And I like and it's not just one direction; it is both directional. You're trying to bring heaven down to earth, and you're lifting up earth to heaven. So it's like you're bringing them together. And so there is a continuous going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Thank you. So let's open it up for any questions or comments. We'll start with Katie. Katie, go ahead.
If you feel comfortable, how would you contrast this with the idea of axis mundi, of like the intersection of heaven and earth in a person?
Wow, I am absolutely grateful for your question because Axis Mundi, well, another symbol is the cross, of course, okay? And the cross is Axis Mundi, okay? Because the vertical dimension is Earth and the horizontal dimension is Earth, I'm sorry, and the vertical dimensions is heaven. And at the crossroad is precisely the space, okay? Meaning that I remind everyone that symbolically at paragraph 2.4 of the Analects, at 40 years old, I am no more confused. Okay, that's line 3 for Confucius. At 40 years old, I symbolically, of course, I am aware not only that I'm socially sophisticated, but that is the lower meaning. But the true meaning that at 40 years old, I'm no more confused is that yes, I'm aware of the horizontal dimension of earth, of sense perception, of intellect, and of social sophistications. But I am also aware that there is a divine dimension that is the vertical reality, and that is the true axis mundi for me. Okay, that is exactly at the heart, because that is why the heart is so important for the human being. And here I would like to make a jump into Plato, because in the allegory of the cave, for me the cave is a, there are many interpretations of the allegory of the cave, okay? But one interpretation is the psychocosmogram of the human mind, in the sense that the cave is part of the animal kingdom, but is not to be rejected. That is why the guy, having left the cave and having seen the sun of the absolute outside, he will come back to the cave because he will come back to his heart. He will come back to the axis mundi, precisely to the crossroads, because that is precisely the endeavor of Plato and of Confucius. Those people are not uh, ivory tower philosophers, okay, because both were born in the nobility, they could have enjoyed their life and so on, but it was not their lives. Their lives was to create something, to bring a difference in their society. And that is precisely the return to the cave, or the return to the heart. Not that you don't know what is higher, you know what is higher, and you kept in your mind, in your heart, in your soul what is higher, but you return to your heart and you will do something for your society. Okay, and I know it's the fourth time that I say that, but I hear often people not understanding Plato and taking him as an ivory tower philosopher, and all his life show that he was not an ivory tower philosopher.
Excellent question, Katie, and great answer. All right, folks. So what do you think? Go ahead and you can make comments. You're welcome to participate in the conversation. Go ahead and type an exclamation mark or raise your hand in Zoom. Um, so one of the things I do want to make, I find the hexagram and trigram to be the easiest way of understanding it. And you are making the point about the chakras. So let me make that point, because that will give another kind of point of comparison to others. So for example, like the way in which it works in the Indian context is like a chakra. So the hexagram that is there in Chinese, that is mapped onto the spine. Okay, it's
Yeah.
mapped onto the spine of human beings. And you have like the three lower ones. The bottom line is the the base of the spine. So that's the kind of the living center, the life itself. Okay. Then you have the second one, which is at your navel, which is like about like control of emotions or temperance or managing of your emotions. Then you have one at solar plexus, which is about courage of saying, okay, I'm going to do this. So it is a way of guiding it. And these are the three lower ones. The three higher ones coming from the top. The one is just above the head, which is like the infinite. It is your conception of the infinite. The second one is between the eyes, which is all about concentration of yours paying attention to the right thing. The third one is in your throat, or basically your voice, your speech. So these are the three higher ones. And the one right in the middle is the heart. So it's the heart that connects the lower and the upper in the Indian context. All right. Anybody, folks, go ahead and you're welcome to make comments. Otherwise, I have a lot of things to talk about. So there are multiple directions here. So one is that we can look at Plato. I mean, the thing that I'm, Quan, I mean, the thing I'm most grateful to you about is that what you're saying is that Plato actually is thinking along the same lines. That he's not saying that I just want the upper, I don't want the lower. But he is saying, so maybe one of the things is that, can you describe the allegory of the cave in a little bit of more detail? And then
Yeah.
talk about how the allegory of cave is like the hexagram, is the movement from the lower to the higher and back. Go ahead.
Yes. So I would like to give a description of what happened in the allegory of the cave. Okay, if you remember chapter 7, the book 7 of the Republic. So you have people who are chained by their necks, their hands, and their legs to a wall, and they can only look straight to the other wall. Okay, and the only thing that they can see are shadows dancing on the opposing walls, and those shadows are made by people on a platform playing with puppets, right? And the people who are shackles are symbolic of the democratic man, okay, the man living at the level of senses perceptions. The second layers are the plutocratic man, the man living at the layer of the intellect. Of what is the intellect? Is wording, organization, conceptualization, and numbers. Okay, so those are very useful for animal rulers, if I may say so. Okay, so those plutocrats are the people on the platform playing with the puppets. Okay, meaning that they are brutal. They think that justice is the advantage of the powerful. So since they are not shackles, they have the advantage compared to the people who are shackles. And the third line is social sophistication, meaning that among the plutocrats and among some of the people who have been shackles, some would be capable to free themselves. Okay, so they have social sophistication, meaning that they are free within the animal kingdom because they are the most skillful within the animal kingdom. Not only do they master the intellect, but they also master the emotional intelligence. Okay, there's one Greek word that is the summary of that line 3, and that Greek word is metis, metis, and metis can be translated loosely in English as cunningness. Okay, when you think about the Greek hero Odysseus, for example, from Homer, Odysseus is characterized mainly by metis, okay, the intelligence of being cunning. So, and what is beautiful here, if you remember the chapter 7 of the Republic, is that among those who manage to unshackle themselves, there is a crossroad for them. Okay, either they keep on their journey to the exit of the cave, or they decide to join the plutocrats on the platform to be a shadow caster. Okay, so that is really beautiful, metaphorically speaking, because it is the perfect image psychologically and socially for everyone among us who are bright enough, let's say, having managed to survive in society and having, let's say, created something for himself. From that moment, he has a choice. Either he keep on his epistemological journey to the exit, meaning to beauty, goodness, and truth by a classical education, and coming back to the cave once he would see the Son of the Absolute, or he would choose to go with the plutocrats. Okay, and that is the absolute beautiful metaphor for the temptation that is open to all of us. I think all of you know that is a movie called The Last Temptation of Christ. Uh, and I would say that the last time, because in the movie, the last temptation of Christ was the temptation of Christ having a family and having an ordinary life. Okay. But I would say that the last temptation of Christ is not that temptation. It's the temptation in the desert. Okay. When the devil offered him the whole world in exchange of him worshiping the devil. Okay. So it is precisely going with the plutocrats on the platform to, to cast the shadows rather than to keep on the epistemological journey. I saw a written question: what is the definition of ivory tower philosopher? Well, it's very simple. An ivory tower philosopher is someone that would not return to the cave once he saw the Son of the Absolute. Okay, meaning that he's not there, he doesn't truly have being. Okay, because if you truly have being, you have in your heart justice, valor, and humanity and wisdom. And if you have true being, you will return to the cave. So an ivory philosopher, a tower philosopher, is a fake philosopher.
Thank you. Next up is going to be Colin. Colin, go ahead.
Hey, this has been great. Can you hear me now?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, good. I'm wondering, does this relate to Jung's concept of the self in any way? And also, could you maybe use like hexagram 29 darkness to explain how the top three lines could relate to higher self that you're talking about? Thanks.
Yes. Uh, it is absolutely clear for me that the journey of what Jung called integration, okay, because the word that Carl Gustav Jung was using is integration, and I'm absolutely sure, Colin, that you know that integration is from Latin intangere, meaning to be whole, okay, to be complete. So it is obvious that Jung integration is absolutely the same than the Platonic epistemological journey or the Chinese epistemological journey. Concerning the hexagram 29, let me see. Okay, darkness or the abysmal. Okay, because the hexagram 29 is called in Chinese Can, and Can is the old word for water. Okay, because the new word for water is shui, but in the universe of the I Ching, water is called Can, and it's translated either as darkness, as you said, or the abysmal. So the judgment of abysmal is the abysmal repeated. If you are sincere, you have success in your heart, and whatever you do succeed. Okay, and that is perfectly the line 3. Okay, you are at the crossroad, and the crossroad is the biggest trap that the universe can give to a man. Either you keep on your epistemological journey to the exit, or you join the plutocrat. Okay, that is the abysmal. Okay, because the water in the universe of the I Ching is the symbol for danger. Okay, for a risk, for something uh, dangerous. Okay, so abysmal is the perfect translation, and the image is about precisely because in the I Ching you have 大象, meaning the big image, and 小象, about each line of the each of the 6 lines of the hexagram. Here, the big image, meaning the distinction between the 3 lines of the lower trigram and the 3 lines of the upper trigram, here is the reading of the image. of the big image, okay, meaning lower trigram versus upper trigram. The water flows on uninterruptedly and reaches its goal. The image of the abysmal repeated because the hexagram of that, because the upper trigram and the lower trigram are exactly the same in that hexagram, as you know, okay? So a broken line, plain line, broken line, and repeated broken line, plain line, broken line. So water flows on uninterruptedly and reaches its goal, the image of the abysmal repeated. Thus, the superior man walks in lasting virtue and carries on the business of teaching. Okay, once again, it's about the transition from line 3 to line 4. Okay, the absolute danger in the life of a man, that is why it's called the abysmal. And so here I will take the time to read the meaning of each line because it's an important hexagram. 6, meaning a broken line at the beginning, first line, means repetition of the abysmal. In the abyss, one falls into a pit, misfortune. Okay, let's not forget. Line 1 is the line of the democratic man, of the commoner, meaning the man obsessed by hedonism, that his understanding is limited to sense perception. If we take the image of the allegory of the cave, those are the people completely shackled. So misfortune. Line 2, 9 at the second place means the abyss is dangerous. One should strive to attain small things only. Okay, so line 2 corresponds to the intellect. So the abyss is dangerous because the intellect can be the source of many entertainment for a man. If he's not capable to go on the verticality, he can stay for all his life on the plateau of the intellect because there are many games on the plateau of the intellect. A little bit like what Shrikant said maybe 30 minutes ago. Okay, the vertical line is very important. If not, you will stay on one of the horizontal plateaus. And God knows that the horizontal plateaus of the intellect is even more dangerous than the horizontal plateau of the sense of perception. Okay, because you have a lot more games on that plateau than than on the first one. Okay, 6 in the third place, meaning the third line. Social sophistication, let's not forget third line. Forward and backward, abyss on abyss. In danger like this, pause at first and wait. Otherwise, you would fall into a pit in the abyss. Do not act in this way. Okay, so at the third line, the last temptation, according to me, you will have to take a pause. Okay, I repeat what Confucius said. At 40 years old, I am no more confused. Okay, not only I'm no more confused because I'm now socially sophisticated, but I know that there is stuff that is called the upper trigram. And I have to go there, but I have to prepare myself. I don't have to rush. I have to examine what are the tools, what are the friends that I can make, what are the companion for that long journey that I can have. Okay, that is why precisely in danger like this, pause at first and wait. The space, after that, in the fourth place, meaning the first line of the upper trigram. 6 in the fourth place means a jug of wine, a bowl of rice with it. Okay, so you have a bit of relief. Okay, a jug of wine, a bowl of rice, earthen vessel simply handed in through the window. There is certainly no blame in this. Okay, so you have reached the first level of the divine kingdom. Okay, you can relax a little bit. 9 at the fifth place. Okay, the fifth place, the beauty and goodness, meaning the aristocratic man. In time, meaning the cardinal virtues of valor and moderation. The abyss is not filled to overflowing. It is filled only to the rim. No blame. So there, let's not forget that the aristocratic man is characterized by creativity, inventivity, discovery. and playful exploration. Okay, what the Plato called dialecticon. So the abyss is not filled to overflowing, meaning that you're there in the creative sphere. You're not in the abyss of the animal kingdom. Okay, the animal kingdom is still there, but you're not in danger. Okay, you're truly in the creative sphere now. It is only filled only to the rim, meaning that, as Shrikant stressed many times, that vertical line is not only to go up but also to go down. Okay, so when you go down, you will also have some danger because of the abyss. But now that you have reached the understanding of the aristocratic man, of dialecticon, of playful exploration, of creativity, of discovery, of inventivity, you're in safe space, even when you go down. Okay, and the last line, the sixth line, six at the top, meaning the sixth line, bound with cords and ropes, shut in between thorn hedge prison walls. For 3 years, one does not find a way. Misfortune. That might, it sounds a little bit paradoxical because you're at the top. What is happening is that you have sometimes when you reach to the top, precisely, you might stay there for a certain time. For 3 years, one does not find a way because it's not only from the bottom to the top, but sometimes when you reach at the highest of the epistemological journey, you would enjoy it so much that you would not want to go down. Okay, in the Buddhist mythology, you have the idea of the gods enjoying a marvelous life, and they just don't want to know anything about the human condition, because let's not forget that for Buddhist philosophy, the highest condition is not the condition of the gods. Okay, but the highest condition is the condition of the human being, because the gods, they are so enjoying themselves that they don't have the depth and the maturity of a human being. So the highest condition is the condition of the human being, as Tong Chong Shu said 22 centuries ago. Man received his mandate from heaven, and only man can match heaven and earth. And that is there the meaning of that paradoxical phrase at the highest, that for 3 years one does not find a way, because when you reach at the highest, you might be tempted to stay there for enjoying and not returning to the cave.
Thank you. So fantastic question, Colin, and great answer. Let me continue on the cave. And folks, anybody has questions, just go ahead and type an exclamation mark. The questions will take precedence. So far, we talked about three kinds of people in the cave. People who are chained by their passions. Then there are people who are the puppet masters. And then there are people who are free, who choose either to join the puppet masters or leave the cave. Now, these are three lines so far. What does Plato talk about? What happens when you leave the cave?
Okay. So first, when you leave the cave at the fourth line, when you are just at the exit of the cave, right? First, you will be blinded by the light. Okay, so that is the true democratic man defined by justice. Okay, the my powers capable to make him uphold justice in a true situation. Here we have to understand the metaphor of the sun, of the light, and of the warmth of the sun rays as infinite awareness, right? As the inner power, the inner energy that would make you capable to embody what you have learned at the second stage as words and concept, and what you have learned at third stage as social sophistication. Okay, because if you stay at social sophistication, you will end up by being a hypocrite, meaning that you will be capable to show a beautiful face, but in true difficult situation, you will not have the inner fortitude and the unwavering awareness to truly say and do what is needed to uphold justice precisely. And when the man is at the entrance of the cave, because he's completely first blinded and completely overwhelmed, and slowly he get used to the energy, to the light of the sun rays, meaning that slowly he get used to the normality of his being having that energy, if you want. Okay. And the fifth line is he will explore the countryside or the prairies, or imagine what you want, of the outside world, and that is the definition of the aristocratic man, of the sovereign. And sovereign here, when I use the Confucianist word sovereign, people would spontaneously think to a political sovereign. Of course, it can be a political sovereign, but here, sovereign, you have to understand the sovereign of your mind. Okay, that is, you truly activate the powers of creativity, of inventivity, of discovery, of playful exploration. And that is to be a true sovereign. So that part, you imagine that person exploring the environment outside of the cave. And finally, the last stage, the philosopher king, meaning that you are 100% awareness. And there you remember that in the allegory, uh, Plato say that you cannot look directly at the sovereign good. Why? Because when you are 100% awareness, you are simply being. Okay, you cannot know about being. Okay, it's to be or not to be, that is the question, right? You cannot know about being. You can know about things. You can explore, you can create, you can discover, but it's still things, even if it's the whole universe. Okay, but at the last stage, when you are 100% awareness, well, that's what the Indian call a Buddha. Okay, a Buddha is the awakened one. Okay, what is the awakened one? The awakened one is 100% awareness, and it is not possible to know 100% awareness. You can only be infinite awareness. Okay, and that is the difference between the aristocratic man, even a very high aristocratic man, but he's still in duality. He's still in being and becoming. He's still in the knower, the knowing, and the known. When you're a philosopher king, you are 100% awareness, and you don't have the knower, the knowing, and the known. You are being. Okay, you are one and three. And the aristocratic man, even the highest of them, they can play with no knowing and knower, but they still not one. Okay, they're not still being, even if they're very creative, very inventive, and very making all kind of discovery and very playful, but they're still not one. And it is only at the last stage that they will be one. So that is why Plato said that you cannot look at being, but you can only be being.
Wow, that was just wonderful. So you have these three. Now, the question, we're talking about the return. Who comes back and who doesn't?
I have to admit that that question is very difficult because I would take shelter in Buddhist theology to answer that. Okay, because in Buddhist theology, they would make the difference between the Buddhas, the Bodhisattva, and the Arhatans. The Arhats or the Arhatans will stay in a state of delight, and they would help people who ask them to help. Okay, but they would not offer spontaneously their help. I would say that it corresponds to four. Okay, the democratic man, and the Bodhisattva are the people capable. Okay, here I am speaking about things who are completely above my head. Okay, I only the parrot of the master. I don't want to pass myself for someone that I'm not. Okay, I'm simply parroting the master. According to the masters, if you go to the absolute and you become the being, you cannot return in time. You cannot return in becoming. Okay. So when you are 99.99999% pure infinite awareness, you have a decision to take. either you go into infinity, into being, and averiderchi, you cannot go back to time. Those are the Buddhas. Or you decide to be a bodhisattva. Okay, you say the 0.00001% of infinite awareness that is missing for me to enter into being completely and forever. I don't take it. I stay in time because I want to go back to the cave. So if I take Buddhist epistemology and cosmology to give an answer, and once again, it's about my head and only parroting the masters, the guy going back to the caves are called the bodhisattvas.
Wow, excellent, excellent. This is just wonderful. This is just fantastic that we're talking about this. Next up is going to be Marco. Marco, go ahead. Folks, don't be shy. Please ask questions. There are no stupid questions. Please, just go ahead and engage with this material. Marco, go ahead.
Um, is the awareness the highest state, or is heaven the highest state? And so does awareness get you to heaven, or yeah, that's it.
Okay. So if I understand your question, heaven is the Chinese word for the divine reality. Okay. So heaven is the dimension or the reality of awareness. And earth is the dimension of time. So when in Chinese philosophy we say earth, of course it's about the earth, okay, the planet on which we are, but symbolically earth is for the time dimension, is for space-time energy matter, and heaven is for the divine reality, is for the infinite awareness. So it's simply a question of Chinese vocabulary. Heaven, infinite awareness; earth, space-time energy matter.
Thank you. Next up is Caleb. Caleb, go ahead.
So I had a question about what you just described as far as reaching that state of the philosopher king and not being able to, I suppose, in a way, regress or go back to a previous state. And I wanted to ask, based on your understanding of the text, is it fair to say that going back, that regression isn't possible? What I'm thinking is that in order to go back, that's still you in that stage of becoming, if that makes sense. Once if you're in that state of becoming, you're progressing towards some goal. Once you've reached that goal, assuming that you can reach that point, that's it. There is no more becoming. You've become. For you to be able to go back would mean that you're still in a state of change. You're still progressing towards something. You're still becoming. So in a sense, you haven't actually achieved that final state because you're still in motion. Does that make sense? Like, I guess, is that the right way of thinking about it? That inability to go back. And I guess the way I frame it makes sense in the first place.
You expressed it perfectly, and I see that you are a natural theologian, because when you reach, let's say, to 95% of pure awareness, and let's say 90% of infinite awareness, okay, a high aristocratic man, you cannot slide down. Okay, so the bodhisattvas are the guy who are 99.99999% pure awareness. So when they decide not to enter into 100% being, they are not the slave of the space-time energy matter dimension. They take that decision out of compassion, because from 90% infinite awareness, you are no more a slave of space-time energy matter. Okay, and even the arans, those who are at, let's say, 80% infinite awareness, once you are in the divine kingdom, when you are in the line 4, you cannot drop down. Okay, but there is a difference in love, in compassion. So when the guy at 99.9999, when he decided not to take the last 0.001% to go into infinite being, it is out of love and of compassion. Okay, so he will keep on the journey of becoming, but as compassion, what the Chinese call Wu Wei, okay, that very mysterious concept in Chinese can be very easily understood with Buddhist epistemology, okay. Wu Wei is precisely the person who is no more the slaves of his animal mind, but who is still acting in space-time energy matter, not because he wants to be rich, not because he wants to be powerful, not because he wants to be influential, but because he is truly loving. Okay, that is Wu Wei, that is a bodhisattva. And the Aran, the guy at line 4, bodhisattva line 5, Buddha line 6, line 4, the Arats or the Arant, they are quite advanced, but they still want a kind of fun. Okay, they are capable of compassion, but they are not as capable of compassion that the guy at line 5, the bodhisattvas. And let's not forget that those who are 100% awareness, they are no more in time. But let's not forget that axis mundi, those who are in timelessness, also have an influence in time, even if they don't have a direct action in the time dimension. Okay, so those who decide to go 100%, they are not selfish, but because their action are indirect rather than direct, like the bodhisattvas haven't decided to stay in time.
Thank you. Thank you. Great question, Caleb, and great answer. Next up is Maritza.
Hi, so I'm going to admit to being fairly novice to both topics. Some of what you said had me thinking about being and becoming from the idea of it being an iterative process. Sometimes I think Plato can be, his concept of being and becoming can be seen a little bit more concretely. But if I'm looking at it from the I guess the I Ching perspective, it would be what comes to mind for me is the yin yang concept where you can't be entirely without a little bit of the other when you're in the converse. And I'm wondering, how would you look at, so if we're looking at the being and becoming as an iterative process, where would lie this concept of the heaven or of the awareness? Like, is it, can you be at times closer to this concept of heaven and pull back for, like you mentioned, the 99.9? Is it a matter of you'll attain 86 and then you drop back down to 80 and then go up again to 86, maybe sometimes 87? Is that the way that the flow would work? Am I entirely envisioning it wrong?
Now you envision it very right, okay. And I would say that the number is my invention. Don't give too much importance to the number, okay. But I would say that at line 4, let's call it 75%, okay. From 75%, you cannot drop down, okay. However, you can stay there for a very long time, and you might be less useful than the people at 90%, for example, or 99%, okay. Because once again, the epistemological journey is a hierarchy of love, okay. The more you hire, the more you're loving, the more you're capable to act, not only center on your animal dimension. Okay, because what is the animal dimension? The animal dimension is you act because you want power, because you want wealth, because you want influence, because you want reputation, because you want to be glorious. Okay, but in the low sense of glorious, because the true glory of with the capital G is in the higher kingdom. So those are the motivations of the animal kingdom. Okay, and from the fourth line, uh, you, I say it's about 75% pure or infinite awareness. From there, you cannot slide down to the animal kingdom. But you can be less useful compared to those who have more infinite awareness. And the other thing that I want to say too, that infinite awareness is always 100%. Okay, the axis mundi, vertical line, it is always there, and horizontal time becoming. The problem is not the vertical line. The problem is to what extent a given human being is capable to be aware of the reality of the vertical reality, right? I want to use a metaphor that is used by a lot of master of meditations. It's the metaphor of the beggar who has a diamond in his pocket and he forgot that he has a diamond in his pocket. The diamond is always there. The diamond is so the pure infinite awareness is always 100%. Okay, the diamond is not broken. It is one diamond, so it's 100%. But the awareness of the diamond, okay, sometimes the beggar will remember that he has a diamond. Okay, let's say that he's at 40%, but the guy at 75%, he always remember that he has a diamond, but he doesn't use it every time. But the guy at 90% always remember that he has the diamond, and each time that he has to act, he remember to take out the diamond and to act with the diamond.
Thank you. All right. So now let me try to add more complexity to this. If this is very hard to talk about. The question of who comes back and who does not. Now I'm not really familiar with the Buddhist traditions, so let me approach it through the Christian tradition here. The upper trigram is the Trinity. God the Father is right at the top. Then there is God the Son in the fifth position. And then there is the Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is the beauty. It is the one that will take you, inspire people below to go to the next level. And in the Christian idea, the upper trigram actually loves the lower trigram. So it's not trying to go away from, God so loves the world. So there is a continuous flow or grace that is flowing from the upper trigram to the lower trigram. And the lower trigram there is a continuous invitation to the lower trigram to rise up to the upper trigram. Now, God the Father, in the church fathers, when you look at the patristic fathers, they regard God the Father as infinite. It is the one, and he's infinite. So it's like infinite light. You can't get there yourself. You can get it in, but you get to it through the Son. So through number 5, which is actually, in a sense, those upper trigram. And again, this I want to ask Quan, whether the 3 lines of the upper trigrams mirror the 3 lines of the lower trigrams. That's what I'm seeing, because you have the emotion of beauty as opposed to the passion of the first line. At the 4th line, you have this emotion of beauty, which your heart encompasses everything, whereas the passions are all fragmented, and you want this and you want this, and it's going to cause a lot of trouble to you. Whereas the feeling of holiness, Holy Spirit, there is beauty. And holy basically simply is the root of whole, that your emotion is you're loving the whole. And so it's like, all embracing kind of emotion, as opposed to what is called passion. Passion, again, not in the Latin sense, but in the Greek sense. Passion means the root of is the same root as passive, that you are reacting to things. You're just reacting to the images that are there on the wall, and you are you're just reacting. So that's the kind of passion. So the fourth line seems to be like the higher version, more integrated version, the one version of things at first level. Similarly, the ideas that are there in the intellect are many, and they're contradictory, and they are just, you're just running through these ideas. You have these confirmation biases and all of this. Whereas the idea at the fifth level, that is the logos, basically the principle that is principle behind everything. And so it is the one of the many of the ideas in another sense. And then you have the all-encompassing truth, as opposed to whatever else that is there in the, I don't have a very good way of formulating the sixth line and its comparison to the third line. But do you see any parallels like this, Quan?
Absolutely. First, I want to say that there is an absolute correspondence between 1 and 4, 2 and 5, and 3 and 6. And let's not forget once again the character Wang, okay? The three horizontal lines are connected by the vertical line. So the vertical line is always present. The question is, what is our epistemological overture making us capable to see the everlasting, infinite presence of that vertical line? Okay, so it is not about that the vertical line is not present in time. Okay, timelessness is present in time, but are we, when we are in time, capable to see that presence of timelessness when we are in time? When we because all of us is endowed with awareness, and that awareness, once again, I go back to the metaphor of the diamond. The diamond is always there, so awareness is always 100%. So the percentage is not about the reality of awareness. The percentage is the percentage of our epistemological overture to see that awareness. Okay. When you said that the Father is infinite, that is precisely that reality. He is always there. But to what extent the people living in time is capable to be aware of his reality, or to use a more down-to-earth image coming from the Tao Te Ching. It is like the fish living in water, asking the question, what is water? Okay, because he's so immersed in that water, because here, I think that everyone here understands that water is the metaphor for infinite awareness. He's so immersed in that he forget that it is always there, that it is the root of his life.
Wonderful. I think Julie has a question. Could you answer that?
Yes, please. I did not read this. Can you?
Yes. Let's see. Julie, would you like to speak out your question? Okay, maybe she's in a place. Would you say, so this is what she asked, would you say that the one who is growing vertically is expanding from and according to love and truth, while the one who is stuck is bound by and operating from fear and fallacy of one kind or the other?
Oh, absolutely. Because I would say that infinite awareness, there is another way to say infinite awareness is fearlessness or freedom. Okay, because you are as free as your freedom is correlated with your level of awareness. Okay, so once again, I go back to what is your motivation. Are you motivated in your action? Are you motivated by wealth, by power, by influence? Or you are motivated by helping people, or you are motivated by knowledge, or you are motivated by by the journey towards infinite awareness? Okay, so you understand that the life defined by being motivated by wealth and power is not exactly the same life than a life defined by creativity or the journey to infinite awareness. Okay, so absolutely, your freedom and your degree of fearlessness is directly correlated with your degree of infinite awareness.
Wonderful. So folks, go ahead and type an exclamation mark if you have questions. The next point I wanted to make is, you talked about the cross. So let's just talk about the vertical dimension of the cross, because what it is that there is incarnation. Incarnation is basically the upper trigram coming down into the lower trigram and living in the lower trigram on Earth. So there is like this, what is called kenosis. It is like pouring out. That's really the love of the upper trigram for the lower trigram. Just love itself. So that's kind of pouring down. So that's one thing. Then there is the question of the cross. It's very interesting because it goes directly into the passions. It faces all the passions of everybody, not just the person himself, but all of passions of everybody, and takes on all the negative consequences of the passions, and then goes up again. Usually that leads to death, but it goes up again. And that resurrection is all about saying that you can take on the death, you can take on all the passions, and can still return to awareness no matter what state you are in. So there is this path always open to you. So in a sense, it's kind of blazing a path, connecting up the vertical line. It's like the Jacob's ladder of angels going down and angels going up. And that is established. So anybody who wants, anybody wherever they are, they can say, oh, this is the way up and this is the way down. And then they can, and at the same time, you remain free to choose whether you want to go up or down or remain where you are. So those are my observations on the verticality. So any thoughts?
I would say that the major thing that I retain from that is that the verticality precisely is freedom. Okay, you can go up, you can go down, you can stay where you are, but I hesitate to use that word because it's very connoted, but it's a channel. Okay. Oh, no, let's forget about channel. It's a way. Okay, it's a way. Okay, it's a road. So in a way, in a road, you can go up, you can go down, you can stay where you are. You can even decide to go on a horizontal dimension for a certain time. But I would say that, and here maybe the metaphor of the way of the road can be interesting. Interesting. I'm sorry. Is that once that you know the map, you can go back to the centrality of the way to go into the direction that you wish after you have explored enough of a certain horizontal dimension, let's say. Okay, and that is precisely the beauty of that vertical elevator or staircase or ladder. That's you can go up, go down, and take a pose at a certain floor, let's say.
Let's connect that to the Tao. Tao talks about the 10,000 things, and the Tao, Tao is right at the top. So it's at the level 6, as best as I understand it, and it's all about, so it's like a very simple statement. It's like there is 6, don't forget it. Don't just go horizontal, with these 10,000 things you have, whether in your emotions, whether in your thoughts, whether in your social positions. If you go like this, then there are going to be 10,000 things. Don't forget that there is that vertical up there. And thou, in the most simplest and most beautiful way, keeps pointing you very gently towards the top of that line.
Yes.
All right,
And,
go ahead.
and maybe I would like to come back to the image of the word Tao, okay? Because on the left side of the word Tao, you have the image for moving, okay? Which is precisely moving in time. But at the same time, on the right side, you have the graph for the head, the fountain head, the top precisely. So the top is inviting you to move uh, everywhere in any directions, but not to forget to go back to the fountainhead as the ultimate destination, let's say.
Wonderful. So we got about 15 minutes. Is there any kind of closing things you would like? Let's Colin has something. Folks, if you have questions, comments, please go ahead. We are wrapping, so don't miss that. Let's go to Colin first. Colin,
Shrikant,
go
may
ahead.
I interrupt you?
Please.
Before going to Colin, I would like to take 5 minutes to read the section 5
Okay.
of the first part of the Great Treatise, because I want to say that the I Ching is formed by 4,400 characters for the core document, but there is 20,100 characters for the philosophical expansion. And in those 20,100 characters of philosophical expansion, there's a stuff called the Ta Chuan, the Great Treatise. And in that Great Treatise, you have 24 sections. I just want to read the 5th section of the first part of the Great Treatise, okay? Because it's about, because I want to make a parallel between Plato and the I Ching. And here we have a text that is marvelous, and it's about timelessness and time, okay? About the timeless forms precisely, okay? But expressed in the Chinese tradition. So it will take 3 minutes. Now yin, now yang is called Tao. Its continuation is goodness, its achievement is nature. Good man see it and call it goodwill. Wise man see it and call it wisdom. Ordinary people use it daily, not knowing what it is. Hence, the Tao of a superior man is exceptional. It shows itself in goodwill, but conceals itself in action. It stimulates all things and does not share the sage's anxiety. Its overflowing power for the great task is indeed sublime. To be richly provided with it is called the great task. Its daily renewal is called overflowing power. Products producing products is called E, okay? Change, okay? I Ching, E. Products producing product. The making of figures is Qian. Qian is heaven. The making of figures is heaven. Imitating their patterns is Kun. Imitating their patterns is earth. Telling numbers to learn the future is called divination. Developing alternations are called event. All that yin and yang do not define is called spirit. Okay, so here you have to understand that yin and yang are the basic ingredients for phenomenal reality. So all that yin and yang do not define is called spirit, that is infinite awareness. Okay, so the section 5 ends with the vertical reality, and just before that, products producing products is called E. The making of figures is called Qian, heaven. Those are the timeless form of Plato, okay? Eidos. And imitating their patterns is Kun. Imitating their patterns is earth, okay? Eidos, timeless form, and phenomena, time shapes, that the Chinese call making of figures is Qian heaven, and imitating their patterns is Kun is earth. Let's not forget that in the Platonic doctrine, you have the absolute timeless form with the phenomena, the apparition, the phenomenon, the phenomena, as an imitation of the timeless form. So I just want to read that because it is an absolute rapprochement between Plato and the Confucianist tradition. Now let's go to Carl.
Excellent. Thank you. Next up is Colin. Colin, go ahead.
I was going to ask about the form, so that kind of surprised me when you went into that. But here's a different one. I've heard that the inner trigram is the lower and the outer trigram is the upper, meaning basically like an alchemical sort of connection between the inner world and the outer world.
Absolutely.
And I was wondering why you kind of take a different take on the lower and the upper trigrams and kind of that typical thought process on them. Thanks.
Yes. If you imagine the lower trigram on the periphery of a circle, the upper trigram would be at the center of the circle, right? But if you just move down the circle a little bit, the upper trigram will be at the place of the inner trigram, and the upper trigram will be at the place of the outer trigram, and the lower trigram would be at the place of the inner trigram. Okay, so you just move the circle. So it's a lesson that time is in timeless and timeless is in time. Okay, because I don't know if you see the visualization. Okay, first take a circle. Okay, so you put the lower trigram at the periphery of the circle. If the lower trigram is at the periphery of the circle, necessarily the upper trigram will be at the center of the circle. Okay, but if you move the circle in the other direction, you reverse everything. Okay, so that is a funny and unchemical way to say that time is in timelessness and timelessness is in time. They are reversible.
Thank you. Colin, would you like a follow-up?
I don't think so. That kind of blew
Okay.
mind, actually. That's a cool way of looking at it. And I guess it reminds me of squaring the circle in alchemy and being able to visualize that being reversed was something I'd never considered. Thank you.
Yeah. Excellent. I mean, it's actually a very deep question, the inner and outer. You know, you can think about like the Old Testament as being focused in the outer kingdom, and it's like New Testament reverses it, saying that the kingdom of heaven is actually in you and also outside. So you can think of it both ways. So it's really, really interesting of saying, okay, where is the upper trigram? Is it inner or is it outer? So it's and it is both. So you can putting it in each of the places gives you a different perspective. It's like, are you living up to the highest possible? You can ask it that way. And then you're kind of, it's kind of like the movement, there is like one movement where, as the passage that Quan read, there are two movements really. There is one which is an active movement, initiating movement, and then there is one which is receptive. And you have to dance between both of those. And so it's like your earth on one side and your heaven, so your heaven and earth. So you're kind of, it's like, one of my favorite quotes, one of my favorite thinkers is Louis Sullivan. And he says, life began to break in upon him, and a continuous breaking in from the outside and breaking out from the inside was to shape his destiny. So both those movements, it's like breathing in and breathing out. If you're just breathing out, you will die. And if you're just breathing in, you will die. So you have to breathe in and breathe out. You have to take in things that the world offers you. And then you have to say things to the world. And it is only through that conversation That conversation is life. So thank you, Colin. Great question. All right. So let's see. Could you liken what you just said to the serenity prayer? Okay, that's very good question. That's an excellent question. So grant me the serenity to accept the things that you cannot change. I've never thought about this in this context, Julie. So the great question. Give me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. It is absolutely like a serenity prayer, but it is serenity prayer on steroids, because it is serenity prayer applied not to just serenity prayer typically is thought of about things you cannot change and things you can change. And it is profound idea. But what this is, and this is what this movement up and down is, breathing in and breathing out, is that you are doing this on the same thing multiple times. You know, you're creating something with the fullest of gusto, saying, I have the courage to create it. And then you're looking at the same thing that you created with a dispassionate eye and saying, let me now take that in and see what it is, so that you can do it again and again. So it's like, this is like the process. It's the same process, but in a, compressed time frame. So great question, Julie. Quan, any closing thoughts? Anything else you want to say?
Uh, Not really. I would say that I would be very happy if you forget everything I said tonight, and that you remember the king and the hexagram. That I would be absolutely happy, and that is the core of the Chinese classical tradition.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Quan. This was just amazing, and we will figure out, new topics to do meetups on, and would love to have you on soon.
Thank you very much, and see you all next time. Ciao.
See you. Bye.